Hello, fellow Knights. This is OG from Crypto Knights, back with another cryptocurrency video. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed so far. We started with 0 subscribers, and now we're almost 70. So let's get to 100. Thank you, guys. So, one question I want to pose to you guys is whether or not you would like me to cover industry news, market updates, the latest developments, across the blockchain industry, the finance industry. Would you like me to cover these things as well, in addition to the technical analysis, or if you prefer these videos to be purely TA? Leave a comment in the comment section below so that I know what you guys will prefer. And if you appreciate videos like this, please give this video a thumbs up, and please do subscribe so that you can get the videos hot off the press so that you don't miss out on any time-sensitive trade videos. With that said, let's get into this video. Let's start with Bitcoin, as we always do. So the reason why I'm saying that 34,000 level needs to hold, or we risk a bigger fall, is the following. Let's do a quick recap, zooming in onto the 15-minute time frame. So yesterday, I mentioned that we were in this ascending triangle pattern, and that we were long a breakout of this pattern. And we actually did break out and had a nice 3.5% rally. So this was a $1,000 plus move. The target we were aiming for, though, was around 38,000, right? We didn't reach that yet, but I mentioned that in the Discord channel that when we were at this level, that would be good to secure profits, right? And the reason why was because I was seeing some hesitation, right? There was consolidation here, and especially when we had this huge wick to the upside on this candle, I was getting slightly concerned that there was a potential for the kind of the bull momentum to stall, and that's exactly what happened here, right? So we had a breakdown from this consolidation ascending triangle, and with pretty strong volume here. So, and since then, price has been trending down. In fact, we broke below this triangle here, and we have even retested it this point as resistance, and we kept falling, right? So this is where we are at in the overall picture of price action, right? Quick price action summary from yesterday. Now, one of the reasons why this level here we had issues with is this, right? If we zoom out to the 4-hour time frame, we can see that if we pull a fib from this swing high to this swing low, this is exactly where the 61.8 level is. And for Bitcoin, the 61.8 is typically the strongest level of support or resistance, and typically where price will bounce off of. And so that's exactly what we had on the higher time frame, the 4-hour, right? And so we see this, test and rejection. And so now with this rejection, if we go into the 1-hour time frame, if we pull another fib, right, a smaller time frame fib from this low of 28.8 to this most recent swing high, then the 61.8 is around 31.8K, right? And so this now becomes, in essence, the next strongest level of attraction, right, for price, aside from the 200 MAs, right? So as you guys know, the two most important levels I pay attention to are the 200 MAs and the 61.8, right? So if one fails, then typically it goes to the next one, and that's typically how I've observed Bitcoin work in most cases. And so right now we are near the 200 MAs on the 1 hour, right? And there's quite a huge gap here, but you can call it this as 33.5 to around 34.2, right? So kind of taking an average around 34,000. So this region needs to hold, in essence, right? And we are kind of testing it right now. So we want to see in the next few hours is for price to potentially come down here a little bit more, work down, right, and then give us some sort of bullish candlestick confirmation, right? An engulfing pattern, something along those lines, and we will want to see volume come in as well to confirm that bullish pattern, right? So if we get, let's say, a bullish engulfing candle, we want to see very, very high volume on that candle, ideally above, at least above the blue line, the average, and ideally above these candles, right? We want to see some sort of spike right up here, so that we can see that, okay, this bullish confirmation is being confirmed with the volume. So that's going to be potentially my next trade that I would take if we do get a nice bullish setup here. Now, if this fails, right, if price comes down and breaks below, then I think there's a high likelihood that we will come down to test this level, right, at 31.8. So that's why I'm saying that 34K roughly needs to hold. And if we do hold and bounce here, then we can potentially see another big leg up, right? So above this high here. So then we could potentially reach our target of 37, 38K that we've been mentioning in the past few days. But all kind of now hinges on whether or not we can have this successful retest. Now, moving on to Ethereum. So quick recap, right? We had this double bottom, this double bottom. The neckline was at 1900. We had this candlestick breakout right here, this huge candlestick breakout, and we've rallied, right? We've actually met our target from this double bottom. And so now we're looking for the potential next trade, right? So if on the 1 hour, we want to see potential bounce here at 2035, but let's see if we can get something, we find something further, right? So, and if we zoom into the 15-minute time frame, then we can see that actually we're having our first retest, or we actually kind of had our first retest at the 200 MAs. And as always, the first retest of the 200 MAs is the highest probability of a bounce, right? I've been mentioning that in all my videos. And so we actually did get a pretty nice bounce here, right? So this was the first retest, had a pretty nice bounce here. So this would have been a good scalp, right? So on the 15-minute chart, we usually go for scalps, right? And so whether or not what time frame you want to pay attention to depends on your personality and how you can manage your positions. Typically, I think with the 1 hour, I try on the 15-minute and the 1 hour, and then sometimes on the 4 hour, and very rarely on the daily, because on the daily I use it for my huddle portfolio, not my trading portfolio. So it's typically the 15-minute and the 1 hour I trade the most. Sometimes on the 4 hour. And in any case, right, on the 15-minute, this was a slight 3% bounce, but with leverage, let's say 10% leverage is 30%, right? So this was a pretty nice move. Now the question is whether or not we can continue up, or if this was the bounce, right? So it bounces, but how far it bounces differs from time to time, right? So sometimes it serves as a huge reversal, right? It comes down to the 200 MAs, and then we get a huge bounce. Sometimes we just get a slight dead cat bounce, and then goes back down. So that's the question. So what I'm looking for is this. This is a potential double bottom W for me, right? With a neckline at 2165, 2170 roughly. And so if price consolidates a little bit and then comes back up and breaks and closes above 2170, then I will be looking to pulling along upon this breakout, and assuming we have strong volume, of course. Volume is always very important. So this is on the upside. On the downside, if we were to break below this 2090, let's call it, then I would think that this bounce is more likely to be over, and that this was the bounce. In which case I wouldn't be looking for a long entry. Now, moving on to some altcoins. First, looking at the ETH Bitcoin pair. So, as we were mentioning in the last couple of days, because Ethereum has been rallying harder than Bitcoin, the ETH Bitcoin pair has been going up as well, right? We see this huge leg. And right now, we seem to be forming some sort of parallel or horizontal parallel channel, right? Something like this. So I think we can expect price to be in this zone until it breaks out, right? So on the downside, if we break down, then we would want to see the 200 MAs potentially serve as a place for a long. On the upside, if we break above this, and depending on how you want to draw it here, but the story is the same, right? If we break above resistance, I probably won't even want to do this, right? This zone, it's more of a zone than a particular level. If we get above this zone with strong volume, then we could potentially see another leg up for the ETH Bitcoin pair. Now let's look at some of the other altcoins. Let's look at Bitcoin Cash. So Bitcoin Cash, again, we had this W here, right? This W had a breakout right here, breakout right here, and that's rally. And now the question is, the story is very similar. Now we're coming back to retest the 200 MAs for the first time. And the question is whether or not we will hold. And so again, I'm looking for a potential long if we get a bullish candlestick pattern along with strong volume. On Litecoin, I actually found something on the 4-hour. So found this potential W double pattern, the double bottom, right? And we actually, here's the neckline, and we actually broke out right here, on this candle, right? So this is potentially a good place for a long trade. We're actually below this price, so if we enter now, we're actually getting a better price than at entry. So, but of course, I haven't traded Litecoin that much, and so whether or not this pattern applies well on Litecoin pair, I'm not really sure. So if you do want to take this trade, make sure it's a very small position. I'm going in with a very small position with the mindset of really just testing this strategy on Litecoin. It's more of a test trade than even which is even smaller than my speculative trades. So I'm more looking to see how things play out, and it's more of a kind of data gathering sort of trade for me than really wanting to get too much profit out of this. But this is a pattern that has broken and has given a entry signal. So I'll be paying attention to this, and I'm entered into this position with very, very small position. Solana. So Solana, we're in a mixed position here because on the one hand we kind of had this W as well, but we are getting rejected, right? We see this rejection from the 200 MAs, and this is the first retest, right? First retest typically means continuation, right? Now the question is whether or not this is over, right? Or whether or not this is the bounce, or whether or not we're going much lower. Now, if we zoom into the 1 hour, we actually see the flip side, right? So whereas on the 4 hour, we were getting the first retest of the 200 MAs as resistance, on the 1 hour, we're getting it as support, right? So if we can get a stronger bounce here, at least above this high, then potentially we can get a larger bounce on the 1 hour, in which case we can then potentially flip the story on the 4 hour. So that's what I'm looking at for Solana. Same story on Uniswap actually, and I'll show you guys. Right, so again, we broke above, we had this W here, we broke above, met our target for the long, we're at 200 MAs right now, so we want to see a stronger bounce here. Right? We want to see stronger bounce in volume to come in for us to entertain a long and for a continuation. Right now, it's just sitting here, but we're not releasing any volume. In fact, the volume's below average, very, very small volume. So there's no conviction in this bounce, at least not yet. Let's look at Vechain. For Vechain, it's actually, very much the same story, right? Kind of a double bottom here, broke out, and now we're coming back to retest the 200 MAs. What's a little bit different is that while the other pairs is already at the 200 MAs, Vechain is still yet to get there. So let's see, right? And lastly, let's look at XRP. Right, similar to Solana, right? It's already at the 200 MAs, and with these see this mini bounce, volume is almost non-existent, right? So we either have to see large volume come in with bullish momentum, or we risk this being the bounce, right? In which case we might see further downside action. So those are all the pairs that I have looked through and that I want to share. And before I end this video, I'd like to just do a quick recap on Bitcoin, right? So, we want to see 34,000, right, roughly, this zone hold as support, and we want to see some bullish candlesticks along with strong volume come in for us to continue to stay bullish and for us to potentially take another long position targeting, let's say, 38,000. If we fail here, then we're likely to see lower prices, potentially at the 31.7 thousand level. And if that fails, then we're looking at 30K once again. So this is very critical right now for Bitcoin to hold these levels. Once again, thank you guys for watching. If you appreciate these videos like this, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so that you can get these videos in a timely manner. Thank you guys. OG out. See you guys in the next